Today is Saturday, January 26th, 2019. This is the second day of our 3-day non-residential session at Endless Path Zendo. And today, for a number of reasons, we'll explore Hekiganroku Case 42, Layman Pong's Beautiful Snowflakes. This past Tuesday was my birthday. I was slated to be born 73 years ago, yikes, in Coral Gables, Florida, in the Everglades, where my father, after returning from overseas, flying the hump, China, Burma, India, on search and rescue, was warrant officer at Homestead Air Force Base. A hurricane destroyed the base a month before my mom's due date, so they moved back to New York City, where, after all my careful in utero preparation for scuba diving and flight training in sunny and tropical weather, I was born in a heavy snowstorm, a shock I've never recovered from. My first lesson in impermanence and how plans might not work out the way you thought. So before looking at lovely snowflakes falling nowhere, we'll start with a couple of haiku, because they're just so wonderful, and they're to them no bigger than a snowflake, really. There is neither heaven nor earth, only snow falling incessantly. Hushin is the name of the poet. Fields and mountains, the snow has taken them all. Nothing remains. Joso. Snow viewing, one by one, they disappear in the falling snow. Katsuri. The nun and potter Rengetsu wrote, yesterday I shattered the ice to draw water. No matter, this morning, frozen, just as solid. Certainly we can identify with that from time to time. And Basho, you light a fire. I'll show you something nice. A great big ball of snow. Finally, the 18th century monk, poet, hermit, calligrapher Ryokan, whose temple Rose and I visited in Japan on our pilgrimage, wrote some really wonderful short things on snow. 1,000 peaks covered with frozen snow, 10,000 mountain paths, yet no sign of human beings. Every day only zazen, sometimes the sound of snow blowing against the window. And the 3,000 worlds that step forward with the light snow, and the light snow that falls in those 3,000 worlds. And fresh morning snow in front of the shrine, the trees, are they white with peach blossoms or white with snow? The children and I joyfully throw snowballs. So, Hekiganroku, Blue Cliff Record, Pian Lu in Chinese, was compiled in China during the Song Dynasty around 1125 by Shuido, then expanded by Master Wan Yu about 60 or so years later. The completed book includes Wan Yu's annotations and commentary on Shuido's collection of 100 verses on old cases, clearly a compilation of 100 koans. In our tradition, which combines Kaplo lineage with Eiken Roshi's Diamond Sangha approach mediated through Dainin Henry Roshi's thorough koan examination, we work on this collection of koans, Hekiganroku, after examining Mu, Sound of a Single Hand, the miscellaneous or introductory koans, and the Wumen Quan, Gateless Barrier. After Hekiganroku, we go on to the Book of Serenity, Shoiroku, Transmission of Light, Denkoroku, Tozan's 5 modes, and the Precept koans. Time permitting, we then review everything, starting again at the beginning, looking at each case much more completely, or more completely. So this case goes like this. When Layman Pong took leave of Weishan, that would be Yuksan in Japanese, the latter asked 10 Zen students to escort him to the temple gate to bid him farewell. The layman, pointing to the falling snowflake, said, "Beautiful snowflakes, they fall nowhere." Then one of the Zen students named Zenkaku, really literally means a practicer of Zen, asked, "Then where do they fall?" The layman slapped him. Zenkaku said, "Even a layman shouldn't be so crude." The layman said, "Though you call yourself a Zen student, old Yama," that's Yama Raja, Lord of the Dead, King of the Dead, "won't let go of you." Zenkaku said, "What about you?" Again, the layman slapped him and said, "You look, but you are blind. You speak, but you are mute." Shuedo comments, "When Pong first spoke, I would have made a snowball and hit him with it." So Weishan Weiyan, Yuksan, his dates are 745 to 828, was an important teacher. He practiced with both Matsu and Shirdo, as did Layman Pong, two great teachers, and is considered one of Shirdo's Dharma heirs. Weishan was a native of Shanxi, present-day Shaanxi province, where the Tang capital of Chang'an, Xi'an, is located. In fact, Kyoto is modeled, just as a side note, on Xi'an, which was considered one of the most beautiful capital cities in the world at the time. In fact, the most beautiful, way ahead of Europe. And so Japanese monks coming to Xi'an, eventually Kyoto, the city of Kyoto, was kind of based on its model. But his temple was in Hunan province to the west of Lake Tunting. Weishan is also a progenitor of the Soto lineage of Zen, as the grandfather of Tungshan Liangche, Tozan Ryokai in Japanese. Layman Pong, who practiced with Matsu, Shirdo, and Weishan, obviously had sought out very good teachers. Now, a lot of what follows, not all of it by any means, but a good portion of it, or I don't know if I want to remember some of it, is information, at least on Pong, that I take from Straight to the Heart of Zen by Philip Kapleau, which was edited by myself. I was the editor for that book and put that together. So we learned there that at 17, Weishan had his head shaved. Till the age of 29, when he took full ordination as a monk, he studied the Vinaya, that is, rules of conduct and sutras. After training with Shido, Sekito in Japanese, he trained with Baso, that's Matsu. He then returned, or Matsu is Baso, he then returned to Shido and received transmission from him, becoming his Dharma heir. After his teacher's death, he left for Mount Weishan. Arriving there, he asked the village headman for permission to live in a cowshed, which was abandoned. Disciples gathered over time. He started with a cowshed, and a hut was built for him, and then it grew. In the summer of 1820, Riko, the prefect or governor, and his Zen adept came to visit. When the governor entered his room, I guess at that point Weishan had a room, not just a cowshed, he was reading a sutra. He continued, though the governor was there. Ko said, repeating an old Chinese saying aloud, "Hearing the name is better than seeing the face." In other words, he was kind of disappointed in what he saw. There's Weishan just continuing to read, not acknowledging him at all. Good reputation, but not so good in person. Weishan replied, "Prefect." Excuse me while I edit, type on. "Yes, your reverence. How dare you esteem the ear and scorn the eye?" Ko bowed and asked, "Where is the Tao?" Weishan pointed up, then down. "Do you understand?" "No," admitted Ko. "The clouds are in the heaven. The water is in the jar," answered the master. Pong, also known as Ho Koji or the layman Ho, lived from 740 to 808. He was born into a Confucian family but became a Buddhist. So, like us, he was not born Buddhist, but at some point chose Zen Buddhism to be his path. This is quite interesting. We think, well, the Chinese, they were all Buddhist. No, Buddhism came from India, and we're hitting very similar issues. Our parents weren't Buddhist, most of us, 9/10 of us, and yet we choose this. The same was happening in China when Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, was arriving. And while giving up attachment to things and wealth in his practice, he chose to always remain a layman, never renounced family, never fully entered monastic life, though he trained periodically in monasteries. So here's from, I think it's Ruth Fuller Sasaki's, from the recorded sayings of Layman Pong. He built a hermitage separate from his residence and there carried on his initial religious practices. These probably included the study of Buddhist sutras and practice of seated meditation. When he was middle-aged, he gave his house away to be used for a temple and sank his possessions and money in a river in order to get rid of them forever. He apparently regarded the acquisition of wealth as an impediment to the attainment of enlightenment, and did not give it away to others for fear it would be a hindrance to them also. It is easy to imagine the surprise and wonder of his neighbors at this drastic renunciation of property. Even today, his name is widely known in connection with the incident. Unfortunately, says Ruth Fuller Sasaki, we are not told what arrangements he subsequently made for his family, or what his wife thought about his decision. In any case, Pong and his daughter, his wife and his son and daughter, all were deeply enlightened. They were a very unusual family. His daughter and he were very close, and they were known to have earned what was probably a very meager livelihood after he threw away his possessions by making and selling bamboo utensils. The one view we have of Pong's son is of him hoeing in the fields, and it suggests the possibility that he supported his mother by farming. So after disposing of his possessions, perhaps in 785, Pong traveled to the nearby mountain of Nanwei to visit the great Chan master Shirdo and attained realization through his work with him. He stayed with Shirdo and his disciples until 786, when he journeyed east to Gyeongsi province to visit Matsu, Baso in Japanese. Under Matsu, and Matsu was one of the truly great teachers, Matsu had close to 100 enlightened disciples and had a tremendous effect on the development of Zen in the Tong. He was quite a dynamic personality and said to be physically like an ox, really powerful. Anyway, under Matsu, Pong experienced great enlightenment, remained afterwards for 2 years among the hundreds of disciples assembled there, and then became a Dharma heir of that noted master. He inherited the Dharma from Matsu. In subsequent years, layman Pong seems to have divided his time between his family and pilgrimages around central China, matching his Chan understanding against all comers in the type of lively and good-humored exchanges recorded in Zen records. It was during this period that he probably wrote many of the verses that have come down to us. His most well-known verse goes like this: "My daily activity is not unusual. I just remain in spontaneous harmony, not grasping or rejecting, nothing left to assert or oppose. What use are fancy titles and expensive clothes of vermilion and purple? This entire mountain is free of even a speck of dust. My supernatural powers and miraculous activity, fetching water and carrying firewood." Those last lines have become very, very famous lines. So here's a bit more detail from Ruth Fuller Sasaki's The Recorded Sayings of Layman Pong on Pong himself. He had occasion to ask Great Master Ma when he came to him, who is the man who doesn't accompany the 10,000 dharmas? Teacher Ma replied, Layman, wait till you've swallowed in one swig all the water of the West River. Then I'll tell you. At that, the layman attained great enlightenment. He went directly to the administrative office, borrowed a writing brush and inkstone, and composed a verse which says, people of the 10 directions are the same one assembly. Each and every one learns Wu Wei. This is the very place to select Buddha. Empty-minded, having passed the exam, I return. And then he stayed at Matsu's temple. Wu Wei means non-doing. It's a famous Taoist phrase. A wonderful line there. Empty-minded, having passed the exam. That's how you pass all Dharma exams, empty-minded. And then he stayed at Matsu's. He received further instruction for 1 or 2 years. In the end, without changing his Confucian appearance, his mind, and this is from the 9th century account, this is a Korean version, the Chodang Chip. So his knowledge of Layman Pong really traveled quite a ways. So this is from Korea. His mind, though he had not changed his external appearance as a Confucian, his mind sported outside of objects. His feelings were unrestrained. That means really deep. But his conduct fitted with the true purport. His way of life was turbid. I'm not sure what that means there, if that's the right word. But he was preeminent among men. Indeed, he was a mystery-learned Confucian, a house-holding bodhisattva. He first lived at East Cliff in Xiangyan and later lived in a small hut outside the west of the city wall. He had an only daughter, and together they fashioned bamboo utensils. She sold them in the city, which provided for their daily needs. His verses number nearly 300 and circulate widely. All these verses, by their words, fit the ultimate principle, and by their phrases reveal the mysterious course of things. To accomplished Confucians, they are jewels in gold. To Buddhists, they are cherished treasure. Now, when it came time to pass on, the layman had his daughter prepare hot water, took a bath, donned his robe, sat properly, cross-legged upon his bed, and having spoken his parting words, addressed her, saying, watch when the sun reaches due south, that is at noon, and report it to me. As he had said, she watched and reported, saying, the sun has just reached due south, but the sun's yang brilliance is eclipsed. The layman exclaimed, how can that be? He arose, went to see it himself. Thereupon his daughter sat upon the bed in zazen and passed away. Her father returned and seeing this exclaimed, exquisite. I spoke of it earlier, now I'll do it. Accordingly, the layman let 7 days elapse in order to do memorial services for his daughter, and then he died. Let's see, a little bit more. His personal name was Yun, his nickname was Dao Xuan, Wei Mystery is what it means. He was a native of Xiangyan. His father held the office of prefect of Hengyan. The layman lived in the southern part of the city, and the other stuff, let's see, we know he built a hermitage for his religious practices. During the Chen Yuan, he gave his house away to be made into a temple. This is now Nangzhen Temple. And during the Chen Yuan era of Tong, he loaded the treasure of his household, several tens of thousands of strings of cash, which is word for money, doesn't mean like that literally, onto a boat in Tungting Lake and sank it in the middle of the river, the stream. After that, he lived like a single leaf. He had a son, a wife, a daughter, all were enlightened. Here's another verse of his. Let's see. So there's how he and his daughter died. Here's about the wife. A messenger was sent to report the news to his wife. When she heard it, she said, "That stupid girl and ignorant old man have gone away without telling me. How unbearable." She went and spoke to her son, whom she saw hoeing in the field, saying, "Mr. Pong and Ling Zhao." By the way, if you look at our ancestral line, which we recited this morning, Layman Pong and Ling Zhao, his daughter, are both in it. Aiken Roshi insisted that lay people and women should be in our ancestral line. So everything that's in italics in our ancestral line is a woman. This is not generally how ancestral lines go. And there are also a number of lay practitioners, very advanced people in our ancestral line. That's thanks to Aiken Roshi, who felt that was really important for what Western Zen really had to offer and what Zen offers Westerners. So she said to her son, "They're both gone." Laying down his hoe, the son exclaimed, "Sa!" And then he also died standing up right there. His mother said, "Stupid boy, how awfully foolish you are." He was also cremated. Everyone marveled at this. Sometimes afterward, Mrs. Pong visited her friends throughout the countryside, bidding them farewell, then went into seclusion, and all trace of her was entirely lost. No one knew where she had gone. The layman often used to say, "I've a boy who has no bride. I've a girl who has no groom. Forming a happy family circle, we speak about the birthless." Now, in China at that time, Confucianism was so strong. To have a boy without a bride and a girl without a groom would have been seen as disaster. But his verse is, "I have a boy who has no bride. I have a girl who has no groom. Forming a happy family circle, we speak about the birthless." Many of his verses were scattered and lost. The layman, and this is from the Chinese record of his in the 9th century, the layman was indeed a Vimalakirti. We'll get into that. Try and maintain a zazen posture during Teisho. So even when sitting in a chair, unless you're having problems with your knees or something, so feet should probably be in front of the chair if you can do that. If it's causing you any pain, though, please ignore anything I say, okay? All right. So now about those deaths. A bit weird, right? Still, to face death more than fearlessly, but even humorously, is pretty stunning. Perhaps there's something here we're not getting. I mean, as contemporary Westerners, we're probably going to find this bit of Pong's story seriously odd. Even the Buddha's advanced students wept grievously at his passing. So I'll assume the point about the Pong family is that death is truly nothing to fear, and a life lived fully, consciously from awakened ground leaves no room for grieving, even in the face of the flames of final impermanence. Remember, Pong, his wife, and both children were all said to be deeply enlightened. Food for thought, despite the cultural oddity here. Then again, Kapla Roshi died very peacefully in the backyard of the Rochester Zen Center, out of doors, under the trees, where he loved to be, surrounded by old friends. And after Aiken Roshi's wife, Anne, died, rapidly and peacefully, I just had a nice chat with her the day before in their quarters. At Pololo Zen Center, Aiken Roshi seemed to have total composure, sure that everything was completely all right, all the way down. Then again, that was his personality. He was a bit on the spectrum, shall we say. Interactive emotion for Aiken Roshi did not come naturally. He really had to work at it, all except humor. He was really pretty good at that. So Wei Shan knew Pong and knew that Pong had a type A personality. A guy who throws all his wealth in the river is not just straightforward, he's hardcore. A Zen Nike poster guy, just do it. Pong's active practice realization attitude makes it clear that Zen isn't just for shave-head pros. It is about our life, as it is. Snow falling, rain dripping, bills on the counter, shoelaces needing to be retied, weddings and funerals. His profound verse of carrying water and firewood points to the miracle of each moment of our ordinary life when unfettered from self-centeredness. Hui Shan, sending 10 monks off with the layman to make an official farewell, was a sign of deep respect, and it had a Dharma twist. Hui Shan may have had a snowflake drift across his mind. Let's see what happens. I wonder how the layman will make use of this. There might be some good Dharma stuff emerging. This is like the Vimalakirti Sutra, when the Buddha sends Manjushri off to visit the wealthy layman Vimalakirti, name means spotless reputation, who's stuck at home lying on his sickbed. Everyone else begged off. No, don't send me, world-honored one. That old layman is too sharp. But Manjushri, Bodhisattva of wisdom, can't turn down the assignment. And so off he goes like a good soldier ordered to take point. Vimalakirti was the great mythic layman of Buddhist tradition, but Pong is an actual historical figure, a married man with a family. And Vimalakirti, who was quite wealthy, never got rid of his wealth. It said he used it to be of help, and it allowed him to interact with all levels of his society. He did not hoard wealth or make it the core of his life. He used it to mature and to advance dharmic understanding and functioning. We too can use the forms of our life, not reject them, to mature. Life is not an interruption of practice realization. Life, our ordinary life, is how we express and embody our practice realization. Hence, if you notice, we have a small copy of Hakuin's great painting of Vimalakirti up as you exit the Zendo. It's on your left as you head out. In some ways, while Pong let's see. While Pong is a great practitioner, Vimalakirti makes a model of lay practice that feels much more complete, settled, and balanced. Of course, again, the sticking point is that Pong was a real person and Vimalakirti most likely a fictive ideal. So, it was a cold day. Heavy snow falling. The monks and the layman, were heading for the temple gate, which would have been about a quarter or half a mile from the temple complex. They were going to see him off and make the official farewells. There's no mention of the cold in the koan case, but there is a sense of beauty and mystery. Beautiful snowflakes are falling. Where do they land? Where do our thoughts, our sensations, our lives go? Did Pong have any intention to start something? Or, like snowflakes falling, did these words just slip from his lips without any self-consciousness whatsoever? Zenkaku, Zen practitioner, one of the monks, finds a challenge in those words. And, knowing the layman's reputation, he's either a fool or he's pretty sharp to respond. Maybe his words leapt out spontaneously too. What do you mean, nowhere? The ground is covered with snow. Where else could they fall? He might be clueless. Duh. Where do they fall? How can they fall? Nowhere. He might be sharp. Look. How can they miss the ground? He might be challenging. Really? Nowhere? I get your drift, but can you express it more clearly? Here, I toss it back to you. Pong doesn't hesitate. He slaps him. Was he judging? Saying, how dumb can you be? Can't you see? Or is he answering fully and insightfully? Pong seems to have been pretty uncompromising. When he awoke to his own attachment to wealth, he didn't give it to charity. He just rode out in midstream and dumped it in the river. Did he think of his wife and children? Maybe he did. Maybe he did it to help them. Maybe it was just, wealth is a burden, a trap, and just like that, he freed himself. Seeing, for him, was doing. Admirable. Yet, Aitken Roshi, I'm told, felt that Pong was too black and white, all in or all out, without subtle middle ground. Empty-minded, empty of all small-minded dualism, yet maybe not refined or subtle. Then again, his Enlightenment verse and other verses he wrote show him to be a person of not just really liberating realization, but genuine sensitivity as well. We are all complex beings. Roshi Kapleau could be a total bear, a bulldozer. And yet, when Rose and I traveled with him or went to movies or dinners together with him, he was always incredibly generous, sensitive, humorous, and thoughtful. Pong, too, was complex, not quite pinned downable. Well, Zenkaku got slapped, and he responds, even a layman shouldn't be so crude. Is he miffed? Shocked? Some teachers say yes, that's what's going on. Zenkaku has no real understanding. He's stuck in monastic structures. He's been struck, and by a layman no less. And that's what his response comes out of. He sees it as disrespectful to his standing as a monk, who in Buddhist hierarchies would necessarily stand above any mere lay practitioner. It would be topsy-turvy, outside confusion structures of order and decorum, overturning normative social perspectives. If so, he might be calling the layman out for not understanding how things are supposed to be. Here lies the crudeness, not just the slap, but who slapped whom. Maybe he's a novice, still stuck with standing on his rank, that being all he has. He's not yet realized that the layman, with his ordinary clothes and full head of hair, rather than monk's clothing and a shaved head, had something beyond conventional forms, robes or no. He had Zen, not simply the forms of Zen. In Japan, and even in the West too, as Buddhism spread out from Asia until recently, there had been a kind of monastic prejudice. How could lay people really fully investigate the Dharma? We're pros. We do formal practice in liturgy all the time. They're amateurs. Fortunately, there is no pro and no amateur in mind. Realization couldn't give a hoot for your outfit. Our line through Aitken Roshi is entirely lay. Yasutani Roshi, himself a priest, only worked with lay people. He felt many monks were training for a period of 3 or so years, going through the motions as they waited to inherit a temple. So they were simply doing what was required to get their driver's license. Whereas lay people, he felt, had real aspiration. They faced difficulties regularly and were willing to make sacrifices and to work hard to enter the way. Every day they might see horrible injustices, even cruelties, as they went about their day's business. And impermanence was always like the big bad wolf knocking at the door, threatening to blow the house down. Someone in the family could be ill, some aged relative fading, a child facing injustice on the job. Given this, lay practitioners had real, in-your-face motivation. Pong knew that practice had nothing to do with appearances. Realizing our own nature, our own mind, is why the Buddha playfully, as Zen says, let all those words escape his mouth to open the way, to help beings realize original nature and be free of suffering. I'm a monk. I'm a Zen person. I'm a teacher. I'm a this. I'm a that. Whatever those things are, you fill it in, can become just so much unnecessary wealth, so much dross actually worthy only of being dumped in the nearest river. In this view, Zenkaku has not yet seen into this. Or is his response, even a layman shouldn't be so crude, actually a good counter-challenge? Really? Your answer is too obvious. How crude of you to make a big deal over ordinary reality. How separative, smart alecky, and zenny of you, Pong. Clearly you've got something, but you're stuck in emptiness, still needing to act beyond conventional terms. Your understanding may be deep, but it's not yet integrated into daily life. It's sharp-edged, self-aware, and so it's crude. Come on, take it down a notch. Be more ordinary. If so, if this is what he's saying, then he's got something on the snowball after all. In short, he's pretty with it, discerning and sharp. Pong responds immediately again. You called yourself a Zen student, but old Yama, Lord of the dead, won't let you go. Is this condemnation? Is he calling out the monk for an unawakened, self-centered blindness to truth? Is he saying, you really don't get it, do you? You're stuck in self-concern, egotism, and blindness. How can you think you're free? The Lord of Death will claim you if you don't get deeper into your practice. You call yourself a Zen student, may be saying quite a lot, implying that the monk has built an identity on this. Or we could read it as the opposite. You call yourself a Zen student? Ha! For all your Zen clothes, haircut, and ordination, you're hardly what I'd call free. When you die, you are going to twist and turn, dangling in the karmic winds. You'd better get to work while you still have time. Or is it again a more subtle challenge? Really? How will you express our innate freedom? Show it. The Lord of Death stands here. Impermanence is not far off, but with us right now. Come on, let's have some Dharma fun, even with cold, white death peering over our shoulders. What will you do? Let's see. The monk answers straightforwardly, what about you? Has he now definitely shown just how stuck he is? Is it an equivocating and lame response, the words of someone standing flat-footed, miffed, and defensive? Like, well, what about you? Or might it be subtler? Is he expressing the central point, saying, that's my presentation, just this. Now, how about you? You think you're so free? Well, how free are you? Show me your truth without all this silly, overly zenny drama. Pong responds immediately again. Slap! You see, but you're blind. You speak, but you're mute. Is he being forceful, cutting through the monk's ignorance, wielding Manjushi's delusion-cutting sword? To point directly at the absolute ground of freedom, yours, mine, the monks, everyone's? Or is he revealing the condition of selfless freedom he himself is coming forward from? Here it is. See? From where I'm at, one sees, but sees nothing. One speaks, but says nothing. There's no one there seeing. There's no one there speaking. Then again, is he overdoing it with his vigorous, overly stylized Zen personality? Or is he, in being uncompromising, actually being compassionate and clear? Could he even be offering praise, not attacking the monk at all? Not seeing dualities is to have no self-consciousness, no clinging to the idea of someone in there doing the seeing. This is what Zen terms blindness. To speak of such blindness is high praise. To speak without self-consciousness, without self-conscious awareness of speaking, is also a lofty condition, selfless, creative, pure. The Buddha, as a Zen saying puts it, taught for 40 years, yet not a single word was spoken. How's that? Literally hundreds of thousands of words were spoken. We have volumes and volumes of sutras attesting to it. So what's this muteness? And what about Pong? And what about Zengaku? What are they saying? What are they doing? Is it nothing or something? Is it right? Is it wrong? 1,200 years ago in China, Pong was known and held in high esteem as a superbly realized person. His verse on daily life and the ordinary miracles of chopping wood and carrying water has come down through these 12 centuries respected and intact. His words still carry so much vitality, truth, and gravitas that the phrase chopping wood, carrying water has become a sort of Western Zen cliché. Understandably so, as Western Zen has become more and more a lay movement. We need our lay heroes and their wisdom, and the verse is about work. We know about that. 1 minute we're working on a report, the next we're trying to fix the lamp. That won't work. The next cooking dinner, the next driving to Wegmans. Certainly monks have samu, work periods, as practice, but lay people simply have work. Chopping wood and carrying water rings our bell. We all do a lot of chopping and toting, even without hand pumps for water or wood stoves for heat. Yet, as the great Zhao Chu, Joshu, close to that same period in China, had a, let's see. Well, anyway, the great Zhao Chu, close to that same period of time in China, had a first enlightenment at 18, full realization at 58, went on maturing till 80 when he started teaching at 80, and then taught for another 40 years after that, becoming probably the most respected Zen master of all time. He never shouted and never slapped. In Zen circles it is said he is the ancient Buddha, and his lips flashed light. Everything he said expressed it fully. He didn't need to slap. He didn't need to shout. There's a wonderful model for lay or monastic Zen people. Wisdom doesn't need to shout, doesn't need high drama. So much of what Zhao Chu said and did was so subtle, a perfect demonstration of practice realization that it came in so far under the radar where people were looking for wise things they didn't notice it at all. It didn't show itself as special in any way. His profound realization was fully integrated into the most ordinary language, events, and actions of his life. And yet, at the same time, he stood totally beyond his times, sheer and smooth as a polished wall. When he set out on pilgrimage, we are told he said words to the effect that, if I encounter a 100-year-old person who I can help, I'll teach him or her. If I encounter a 7-year-old child who I can learn from, I'll learn from him or her. Now, this was way beyond the Confucian times, in which elders were respected for having acquired wisdom with age, and children, especially girl children, not heeded, as they were seen as simply raw and unformed. Grand dramatic gestures may or may not mean much at all. Yet, there are also great teachers who are known for their shouts, slaps, and blows. Lin Ji would be one, and Deshan another. It all depends on the personality. Aiken Roshi was rather a mild sort, a sort of modern Western Confucian gentleman, and did not feel much affinity for Harada Roshi and the stern teaching he held to at Hoshinji, with shouts and heavy-handed flourishing of the kiyosaku, encouragement stick. But I'm pretty sure he loved Lin Ji nonetheless, direct and vigorous as Lin Ji could be. He felt something truly noetic there in Lin Ji's utterances in his mondo. And while Kaplo Roshi had incredible respect for Harada Roshi and was himself a pretty direct and active personality, his practice only really blossomed as a lay student under the gentler and subtler guidance of Yasutani Roshi. We each have to find our own way. Imitation won't work. When the endless snow is falling, when stuff is hitting the fan, where and how do we stand? And how will we express our truth? We have, and indeed all we have, is this right now moment, this breath, this count, this koan, and the opportunities they open. If we give ourselves to this moment of practice, let all go, all me in here, you out there, all me trying to get something, all me looking at snow, all snow falling, all cold biting or cold that wipes us away, all confusion, all pain in knees, all anxiety about this or that, all thoughts of what has happened or what will happen, then we too can, to one degree or another, really know. Of course, letting go also means accepting fully, totally. We have this body and no one else's. This breath and no one else's. These problems and no one else's. Chao Chu said, even something as simple as making water, I have to do for myself. This koan point, this count, 1, 2, experiencing just this breath, just this pure sitting is our work, and it is up to each of us and no one else. Snow fills our eyes, fills our ears. We see nothing. We hear nothing. Vast purity extends endlessly through and through. And yet, even so, doing this work, taking up the challenge of this moment, this breath, this koan, we simultaneously help each other, as well as others in ways we may never, ever logically figure out. Zazen and our life are are not separate. Pong is Manjushri, swinging his sword, and he is Kanon, using 1,000 hands, eyes and hands, not letting a thing or a moment go untended. Compassion takes many forms. Pong is urgently pressing us to awake. Oh, beautiful snowflakes. They fall nowhere. Glittering, beautiful, strange, mysterious, falling so thick I can't see a thing, feel a thing, hear a thing, touch a thing, say a thing. Blinded by snow, I no longer find anything to call myself or to call you. And while the purity of one pointed attention is to the point, whiteness and featurelessness also reveal the vast emptiness that is already right now, not simply when we wake to it, exactly the 10,000 solid things we encounter every day: snow, people, clouds, rivers, mountains, trees, animals, cars. Shwedo, compiler of the Blue Cliff Record, or Hekigonroku, or Pianlu, then brings the whole dialogue forward into the present, cleansing Pong, Zenkaku, and us as well of all notions, no matter how seemingly profound. With his final bold comment, he brings everything back down to earth. Hit him with a snowball! Hit him as soon as he even opens his mouth to speak. Wham! Gone. Gone. Entirely gone. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. All is stuffed with snow, smothered in snow. Shwedo not only outpongs Pong, but at the same time he actually honors him, even while returning us to something more ambiguous and mysterious than we dreamed. He brings back beautiful snowflakes, falling, falling endlessly. Be quiet, old Pong, he says. Give it a rest. Let the snow fall where it will. Let the wind blow where it will. What need is there for high-handed drama? With everything gone, all is vastly empty, as it has been from the beginning. Listen. Just listen. When commenting on this koan, Ushikapu always ended with this poem of Wallace Stevens. I will follow his lead. The Snowman. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold a long time, to behold the junipers shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter of the January sun, and not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind, in the sound of a few leaves, which is the sound of the land full of the same wind that is blowing in the same bare place for the listener who listens in the snow and nothing himself beholds nothing that is not there and the nothing that is. We'll stop here and recite our great vows for all.